Thank you, Mike. Great being here. Usually when I'm talking in small groups, there's not so much of a production, which I appreciate, the full-on walk-in music and everything. So everyone has to decrease your expectations. I am not a preacher on the side, like my man. So everyone decrease your expectations. I don't do this on the part time. Happy to be here. Mike and I met at a Gator 100 where our business was growing very similar to Mike's, and we happened to be on account. We both went to the University of Florida, building construction school, and we were on a panel together. And he said, "Hey, I'd love to see how you guys run your business." And I said, "Come on down." And he came down, and we spent probably a couple hours talking about our business and how it works. And so when he asked me to do this, I said, "Oh, for you, Mike, anything." So a little bit about our business. And do we have slides? They're coming up.
It's a little bit late.
And so this is the house we started in. Really zero revenue. My dad had retired from a publicly traded business, and we started the business right here. So when he said Generation 2, I don't necessarily identify with that. I identify more with Generation 1.5. It was me, my dad, and a laptop when the business started. So it was just two of us when the business started. And from there, what we ended up building was pretty special. And a lot of it had to do with a lot of who my dad was or is. He's still alive. He's 77. My brother's on the right. He's 2 years older than I am. And that is us when we built the Miami Dolphins training facility. And that's what's fun part about this business, which everyone probably agrees with, is you get to build some pretty cool stuff. And then it'll be there for a long time. You can tell your family, you can tell your friends. I was involved in building that, which is pretty neat. So my dad was a CEO. But he was a different CEO. He's more of a chief operations officer. He loves this business. He had great reputation. He had a great network, right? And he had a lot of credibility, right? So going into the business, we had those things going for us. And with that network, we really did expand really fast. But the business has changed a lot over 20 years. It's only 20 years old, right? When you kind of think about it. And here we are today, and this is what we have. The business is actually made up of 5 different businesses. So we have 5 different leadership teams that help run this business. In South Florida, we do close to $1 billion of construction. It's apartments. We built the Marlins ballpark. We're building airports. We built seaports. We built where Messi plays right now, soccer. So we built all that stuff. And we have about 306 operations people that help us do that, right? Mid-Florida, and we call Mid-Florida, really, it was Orlando, Tampa. Now it's just Tampa because Tampa became such a big market that we really focused in on what that market looks like. So it's Tampa and Sarasota more than anything. About 100 people are in that office. And then Dallas is a $206 million office, probably has the most headroom to grow. Dallas is a very big market, probably could be doing $600 million in the next 2 or 3 years there. We have about 100 people, probably have to grow the most by headcount there. Hawaii is $170 million. We have 347 people, about 70 salary people there, and 278 hourly. Now, solar is the largest growth market we've had for the past 4 years. It's a $1.8 billion market. It is nationwide, from Florida to Nevada to Virginia. Anywhere in that triangle, we will do work, and you can see how many people we have there. One of the things I like to talk about is, what's your motive to doing this kind of business? If it's on a reward basis, there's probably a lot better stuff to do than start a business, if you are talking about reward. If you want the responsibility of families and of people, this is a really good business to be in, or owning your own business is to be in. Because when you see all those numbers and you say, well, that's a lot of people, I don't look at them as people. I look at them as families. So I think when I'm responsible for those 4,000 families that are up there. That's how I look at this business. I always thought I wanted to make a difference in the world. Maybe it was to be a preacher. Maybe it was to be a politician. But what I figured out over time is I can make bigger impact on people's lives by owning a business, that's a great place to work, right? If you own a business, it's a great place to work, and you give them dignity in work, then they can thrive as well. So as we think about what our values are, and so you have to start first kind of, and I was kind of funny, Mike was telling me about his journey through COVID and about how he got redirected and what his purpose was. I went through something very similar in 2016. It's like, okay, we're 12 years into this, and is turning another dollar really what it's about, right? Is just working to work really what it's about. And I said, I need to have some values that we're going to live by that make sense for me. And these are the values that we came up with as a team. About 20 or 30 of us got together, probably 20 of us got together, and we worked on crafting, which is not a lot of words, but it took about 6 months to get to. Now, when you build something that takes 6 months to get to, we haven't changed it in 8 years. Not a word, not a sentence. We haven't changed it. On relationships, care about the safety, well-being, and success of our families and business partners. When you talk about well-being, you're talking about the whole person, right? Not just did they show up to work, but how are they doing holistically, right? And then it tells the leaders that this is not a transactional business that you're going to have with team members. You're going to care deeply about them, right? Because we're going to hold them to a high standard, right? So if you just hold them to a high standard and not care deeply, that's just straight tough love, right? Over and over again. But if you have deep devotion and you hold them to a high standard, people will really work for the team greatly. Right? Entrepreneurial spirit, embrace opportunities, innovate, and overcome challenges, right? This shows to everybody, we're going to be a business that grows. Well, why do you say that? Well, in order to not grow, you'd have to unembrace opportunities, right? So when an opportunity comes, people knows this is how we're going to move. We are a business of hustle. I tell even my kids, hey, I can get you a job there. Whether or not you can keep it will be up to you, because this is going to be a hustle business, right? Last one is contagious energy, and you can feel this when you walk in our offices. Really an ohm to my dad. He's got this amazing energy even at 77. And really it summed up what Mike said. We're going to work hard. We're in construction. Like, it's going to be early. It's going to be 6. We're going to open the gate at probably 5:30. And sometimes on some jobs, the gate never gets closed, meaning we're working 24/7, right? That is the way it's going to go in this business. So let's be really clear. We're going to have energy like that. Second is, in this business, in this industry, we're not known to be the nicest industry. So I wanted to let everyone know you can be nice to each other, right? That doesn't mean you're weak. That just means you're going to be kind to people. That means that you're going to have a place to work that people want to enjoy. And lastly, we're going to have fun doing this, right? We should not be able to tell the distinction between our work and our play, right? Does that mean we're going to be unsafe? No. It means we're just going to have some fun doing it, right? And it looks different for different people, right? And it's only 1 exclamation mark, not 3, just so you can know that every single comma and period was looked at. One of the mindsets that Mike asked me to say, hey, give me 3 mindsets when you think about where the business has gone over time. One of my favorite authors, Simon Sinek, talks about this infinite game, right? And there's 2 different kinds of games. There's a finite game, right? We know where the beginning is and we know where the end is. And that sounds like a basketball game, right? Or a football game, right? And not baseball, because you never know when they're going to end sometimes, right? But that's a joke. But you know that there's only so much time in a basketball game. It's finite, right? But when you talk about the whole season, or you talk about a franchise, it's more infinite, right? Well, the business is the same way, especially construction, especially our business. We're talking about a finite thing. A project has a beginning, has an end. But if you always think about the finite of things, how do I maximize the dollars just on this project? Or how do I make sure that everybody's here and working really hard just on this project? You may miss the infinite game, the bigger picture, right? And so people talk about winning as a company. I talk about either being ahead or behind. Because if you're winning, that means the game is stopped. It means the company's dead, right? Or the company sold, or the company went out of business, right? And so it's kind of the way to think about it. So if you're thinking about a game that is infinite, you start to make a little bit different choices. This is a long-term business, right? I was actually in an Uber one time, and this guy he was a curious person, so I kept on answering questions. And he was an entrepreneur, and he had like 2 or 3 businesses going, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And I'm a business nerd. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. And he said, so when did you get okay with money? I'm like, what do you mean okay with money? What are we talking about? When did you have enough money to be okay? I'm like, oh, wow. I said, it took 16 years from we started the company, so only 4 years ago. Whoa, what does that mean? It means you plow back the money into this business. It's 2 separate things. Your lifestyle is one thing, and then what do you need for money in this business is a whole different thing. So when you make money on a job, know that that's the business's money, not necessarily your money, right? And so the infinite game makes you think about, how do I keep this going? Our jobs as CEOs is, how do I keep this ball rolling? That's our job, right? And if you want it to get bigger from a kind of what you want out of your life, then you have to plow more into it. So some years when we made lots of money, there was no distributions. We just left it in business, right? And you left it, and you let it like later, right? CFO one time, I said, when do we ever get distribution? He goes, oh, it's just right over the next hill, right? To steal the preachers, I feel like I was with Moses for years. It's just right over the next hill. It's right over the next hill. And I was teasing him about that. And finally, I changed CFOs, and we got distributions. Now the company actually got to a point where we had enough money to do that. One of the things about this infinite game is we can't choose the game, we can choose the rules, right? If you start to think about it kind of how we play, you're starting to change how you think about the construction business. Typically, people think about it as a series of jobs. But when you go from, and here's the mindset of scaling, is when you go from from 3 jobs, now you're going to do 6 jobs. Well, now you got to figure out, okay, how am I going to do those 6 jobs? What do I need to change inside my infrastructure to go from 3 jobs to 6 jobs? Do I need to add an extra person? And how am I bringing that on? So now my strategy is now gone from 3 to 6. What does that new box do? Don't hire people, hire positions, right? And typically people make the mistake of hiring people and they don't know what position they're going to play. So make the box first as you get the 3, as you go from 3 to 6 jobs. Write the box down, describe what that box does, makes it a lot easier to hire them. What you'll be typically says, I just need somebody. And now you hire a person that probably is a nice person, probably can do some work. You're not quite sure which work, but then you're not going to hire the perfect person for that box. It's a mistake I've made in the past. Now we're super disciplined. It goes strategy first, going from 3 to 6. Then it goes to structure. What's the box? No names. Then you hire the people that fit in the box, right? So be real clear what box you're hiring every time.
That's good, Scott.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been 20 years of learning all this stuff. So, and then be really clear about what your strategy is. So I talked about strategy first. This is our strategy. Build a company that thrive in perpetuity, right? When you thrive in perpetuity, it means for a long time, forever, right? When you start to focus on that, everyone then knows we're not trying to squeeze every single dollar out of this every year, right? We're trying to make sure that we last, right? We're going to be geese that are well-fed, not geese that are totally well-fed and just fat. We're going to make sure that we are appropriately fed, or we're not trying to squeeze everything out for a year, and then we're going to try and run as lean as we can to make as much money as we can in a year. Right? That's a skinny goose, bad eggs, right? You want to kind of be that golden goose. You got to treat these businesses like they're the golden goose. Keep them well-fed, not too well-fed, right? You don't want to get too much overhead to where you're spending too much money on overhead, but how do you have it to right size for where you are? So here is our strategy. Focus. I believe businesses get unfocused. And so this is where we only focus on 4 geographic areas where we build and construct, those 4 that I mentioned before, and 1 national platform, right, solar. Why do I focus on those 4 regional places? Because when we finished, it makes the decisions easier. So when you decide up front, you can make these decisions easier about what jobs you want to do, which jobs don't you want to do, which ones fit into your categories that work. I'll give you a perfect example. And construction people are a little bit entrepreneurial to like, we believe everything's going to be okay, right? And so what this helps us think about is everything's not going to be okay, right? If you get off strategy. So why does this help me? Can we plug that? Okay, there you go. Why does this help me is, so we finished the Dolphins training facility. The Jacksonville Jaguars come knocking on our door and saying, hey, come build another football training facility. And we're like, oh, that's interesting. Number one, nice compliment, right? From an ego standpoint, that feels good, right? Does it fit in our strategy? No. Jacksonville is not South Florida, right? And it's not Tampa. They said, well, we said no. And they said, well, what gives? You guys build buildings? Yes, but we build in these 4 distinct regions. And they said, okay, fine, you said no. So the architect goes back and says, you need to get these guys. And so you go and look at our stay agile, right? Move quickly to drive to much higher returns. Now, if they said, well, we need you, we have to have you. I said, okay, we'll do it cost plus 10%, which is way above market, right? It's way above. I mean, that's absurd for that. And they said, well, we can get someone else to do it for like 4%. And you should do that, right? And you should do that, right? It shouldn't, we're running our business, right? If you want us to do it, then we're going to charge you that. And they said, well, why is it you guys do that way? Well, let's look at it. I'm in a region that's already doing $12 billion a year. The whole region, there's so much going on in South Florida. I'd have to take a team of 10, move them to Jacksonville, right? Now, how does that work with my values? I care about the safety, well-being, success of our families and business partners, right? Now I'm moving a family. Most likely someone's got high school kids, elementary kids. We all like to stay married, right? All those things need to be kind of thought of. And now I'm going to move 10 people up there. And not only do I move 10 people there, I just moved 10 salesmen. They know the people there. We don't know the subcontractors in Jacksonville, right? So this keeps us super focused on what we're thinking about. Second is earn a better than average return on the funds invested. What that tells us and the people that work there is we're not going to be the low-cost provider. We are not everyday low pricing like Walmart, right? So we're going to be a higher-end contractor. We're going to have smart people working with us. People should expect to have higher salaries, higher bonuses. That means our owners should expect to be paying more for it, right? And if they're going to go cheap, we're out, right? Again, already, so that means low bid or low cost developers. We're not going to go after them. All you're doing with these strategy stuff is you're making decisions ahead of time. Makes it so much faster. Very much like, and I was a quarterback in high school, very much like how you get to the line and you have audibles, right? And those audibles are already set up before you ever get there. Makes it fast, right? They have 3 linebackers, you're going to run a different play than if they have 2, right? Stay agile. These are ours. These may not be yours. You have to decide what your strategy is. Stay agile to drive much quicker, higher returns. That's a little bit about who we are from an entrepreneur spirit standpoint. If someone wants us to do something and wants to pay us a bunch of money, sure, we're in, and we'll figure it out. And lastly, evolve with market demands and opportunities. We look at our markets every quarter, meaning how is the market behaving right now, and do we need to shift? And why is it that we do that is these are businesses that really, all construction is, we're the tail. We are not the dog. We create zero demand, right? The demand is usually created by demographics, right? If people are moving in there, they're going to need buildings, they're going to need houses. We don't create that. We are only reacting to demand. So if demand changes, we have to be able to shift the business fast. Otherwise, you're going to have too many resources in one place. Perfect example of that is when we're growing by 50 to 60% in solar, and we didn't have enough leadership there. And we went through one of those quarterly reviews and we said, hey, we don't have enough leadership here. We don't have time to hire somebody and understand it. We actually took leadership from another division and from South Florida where we had a lot of leadership, and we put it into solar, right?
And only if you're looking at the market would you ever make these changes, right? If you're just kind of letting the business keep on going, you'd never make these changes. So we do that quarterly to figure out where we're heading. So how many iterations, how many times have we changed? As businesses grow, you have to change with it. And so I about in 2014, I became president in 2011. So the first two Moss 1.0 and 2.0s, I was kind of in the business, down in the business, executing work and helping with the back of house, computer systems, finance, that kind of stuff. But as I got elevated to president, then I started working on kind of the vision of the business. And that's everyone's business, everyone's job here is you're not necessarily a chief executive officer, you're the chief vision officer. Where is this business heading? And then how do you think you're going to get there? So strategy is the vision's first, and the strategy, and then the structure, and then the people, right? And this is an a little bit to, you're going to be constantly changing. There's going to be different versions of where we are in the business. Why do you do this is, what's fun is both of you have 3 people working there. And if you tripled in size or you quadrupled in size, people would be like, hey, it's different. I'm like, yeah, we're triple or quadruple the size. And it's a little bit like when your phone operating system changes and you're like, oh, 15.6, I don't love 15.6 because this moved or now my thumb does something different. Well, that's what you need to tell your team that yes, we're in version 6 or 7. You got hired in version 3. Yeah, you're 3 different versions away. And correct. We only had, I think when I took over, in 2011, we had 142 people in the business. And today we have close to 4,000 or 5,000, right? So yes, version 3 and version 7 are very, very different companies. And now the company name's the same, the logo's the same, people expect it to be the same, but the version is very different. I like versioning because then it kind of says to people, the business is changing. One of the things that we changed throughout the business is, especially when I took over, is my dad ran one way, right? He's a hardcore baby boomer. Kind of get your stuff done, keep your head down, keep moving, and that works for a certain scale. When about 3 or 4 of us Gen Xers took over, we realized that we had a trust issue inside the business. And a trust issue is really hard to run a business if you don't trust the people you're working with, because then you're going to think they have some ulterior motive, that they don't care necessarily about you, and they only care about themselves, right? And so we'll talk a little more about trust and what that drives. So we worked hardcore in version in Moss 3.0 on trust, and that equals really vulnerability at the end of the day. And Patrick Lencioni talks about this in the 5 dysfunctions of a team. So a lot of this stuff I did not make up. I've done a lot of studying on business and about leadership. And so I'll tell you where to get more information if you're looking for it. And why do you want trust and vulnerability is because you need to have good, healthy conflict in a business. Because you're going to have many different doors to go through. Sometimes there are 2 doors. Sometimes people think you only have 1 door to go in. And what healthy debate will show you is you usually have 3 different paths to go down. And now it's good to debate which path to go down. And why is it important to have 3 is if you only think there's only 1 way to get something done, you're going to be a little bit myopic and you're not going to look at all the opportunities out there, right? And so this good conflict, and you want to get partners, teammates, whomever, that help you have this healthy debate about what's right for the business. And once you have that healthy debate, right? And I'm not going to say it's consensus. I'm not going to say every time you're going to get everyone to say, yeah, that's it. I want to do that for sure. You're going to get commitment. And that commitment is very important, right? That means everyone is running the same play. Like when a football team comes out of a huddle, they are committed to what play they're going to run or what audible they're going to run. They're committed. And if they're not, and someone doesn't run the right play, boy, the coach knows, and everybody in the team knows, and then they hold them accountable to make sure they're running that play. And so you have to make sure there's really good clarity and closure on what that commitment is. So then you can hold people accountable to what the play is that we're going to run. And that's the high standard I was talking about. That high standard is very important, that we all know what play we're running, and then hold them accountable. And as CEOs, not necessarily always the most comfortable conversations, to hold your people that you trust and care about accountable to a high standard, but you have to do it. That's part of the job, right? And then finally, you get results, and those results should be good if you're committed to a good plan and you're committed to accountability. I'm happy to say right now with my team, I only focus on trust, conflict, and commitment. I don't even think about accountability anymore because the team holds themselves accountable. I don't have to have much conversation, right? And then the results, I let the accountants figure out the results, right? So if you get good commitment from your team, accountability and the results gets really easy, right? Now, how does a publicly traded company work? Typically, they start at results, right? And then if you do well inside the company, Scooby snacks for you, right? If you do poorly, you're getting fired. They never even get to commitment. And forget about trust, right? Unless they're a really healthy organization, they just don't focus on this stuff. As private companies, you get a chance to really focus on having deep relationships and trust. It's going to be a lot more fruitful, a lot more fun, right? But Patrick Lencioni actually has also a podcast that I listen to probably 3 or 4 times a month. He does one every week, and it really talks about the health of a business. It gives you little snippets about how to think about your business. The health and the organization of business is way more important to me than what the profits are. It shows you how far you'll go in the future. So a little bit more about 5 dysfunctions of a team. And in your role as a leader, I thought this was a good chart to put in here, is force on collective outcomes. So it's a little bit different triangle. So now trust is at the top, absence of trust. As a leader, you have to go first. You have to be the most vulnerable. You have to say, I don't necessarily know all the answers, but we're going to work together to make sure we find them together, right? You have to be also open to show that your life is an open book for these people, right? Mind for conflict, right? And what typically happens is most leaders don't fear conflict because they think something's wrong. But if you mind for conflict and clear the conflict, it's very important that you clear the conflict. Like, hey, I know, and maybe you have 2 project managers, and he's got a set of people that are amazing at things, and you have another guy who's a set of people that are amazing at things, but now a job comes in, he's too busy to do it. This guy's got people, but it's his relationship. Now this guy's thinking, that's mine. Well, you don't have the people to do it, but we as a team need to do this together, right? So now you have a conflict. This is my relationship. I should get credit for it, right? But he's got all the people to get it done. Right? Now you have a good conflict, right? How are we going to get this done together? How are we going to figure this out? Typically what ends up happening is your compensation is what is going to drive. Are you compensated collectively or are you compensated individually, right? And that ends up being a nice spirited conversation. So force clarity and closure on commitment, confront difficult issues. Like, this is our job as leaders. We got to confront those difficult issues head on. They're uncomfortable conversations. Say it out loud too. Say, this is going to be uncomfortable for me too, right? And you can do it respectfully. You can do it caringly, but it's going to be uncomfortable. And force on collective outcomes. And I think what people often do is they really want to reward people kind of individually, but really it's how is the business is doing is really how you reward people. How is the business doing, and then what's your role in the business? That's how, and in that way, it really drives better results. I think it's something we've moved away from industry, is kind of thinking about like one person makes that big a difference. I think in construction, it's a team sport, especially once you get on the job site. You realize if you have subs, you probably have 3 or 4. Sometimes our jobs have 60 subs on them. Think about 60 different kind of priorities. Now that takes a lot of leadership to make sure everybody's focused on that one thing of getting the project done. So make sure you force the collective outcomes. Again, you guys can stop me anytime for questions if you guys say, hey, I want to know more about that. So I'm going to go a little bit further into trust, and then how to spot trust, how to build trust, how to think about trust. And I love this equation. This equation is, are you credible, right? Do you know stuff? Or are you reliable? Do you do what exactly you say you're going to do? How intimate can you get with people? Can you show your true self? Can you be the full Scott or the full whomever, right? And if you can do all that, your denominator is big. But here is the hard part. If you act out of self-interest, if you're self-orientated, if you're doing things for you, that denominator starts to get, the numerator's high, but if the denominator is high, it ends up being 0, or it ends up being 1, right? So this is a little bit better explanation, right? If you're so self-orientated, are they focused on my interest or theirs, right? When you're talking with somebody, is someone really so focused on their interest? You're like, well, trust goes way down. It doesn't matter how much credibility they have. It doesn't matter if they're reliable, and it doesn't matter if they're intimate or not, right? Or if you feel safe with them, right? Now, let's do another side. If this person's giving, not really so focused on themselves, but focused on your success, boy, if that number is low, and then now they're really super credible, they're always deliver, and their intimacy, that trust level's way up. We have team members like this on our team that you can rely on them. They're not self-interested. And we've seen the harder parts of business. And one of the hardest parts of that business is when you have someone who's super credible, super reliable, right? But boy, their self-interest is high, but they're super effective. It's like a drug. And so as a business, you get addicted to these drugs that a guy or girl is like super good at what they do, super reliable, but you can tell their self-interest is high. It drives down trust inside of your business amazingly. You're like, wow, why is this happening? The person's good. They get it done. Well, what I call these people is they're competent jerks, right? At the end of the day, they're competent jerks. And so if you kind of think about, 4 boxes, and I think this is the hardest part about business is you have credibility or kind of effectiveness on the bottom. You have lovable on the left. And so what we all want to be in that top right quadrant of lovable star, right? Someone who's great, gets stuff done, they're credible, they're reliable, they feel safe with them. That's a lovable star. And their self-interest is low, right? Lovable star. Now what happens over time is, as a business grows, some of these people end up being in positions that are out of, meaning the business keeps on growing. And you as a leader have to think about this too. If your business starts to grow past your capabilities, it's either you skill up or you hire somebody to do that job. That's your choice. You skill up or hire somebody. Today, you guys are skilling up. I can't say much about the speakers today, so hopefully they're better than me, but today you're skilling up. Today you're thinking about, how do I get better to run this business, right? Well, if you don't have people skilling up with you, growing as fast as the business goes, they're going to end up being lovable fools, right? Right? And those lovable fools will hold you back from continuing on because now you love the person. They have great reliability. They have great intimacy. They're no longer credible because now you got them out of position, right? You got them in a bigger position than they can do, right? Now, here's what you can do. Since they're a lovable fool, get them in the right spot. Then they'll be a lovable star again, right? Coach them up, upskill them, do something. Some of them are capable enough to be upskilled. Some of them aren't capable enough. You're going to have to be okay with that, right? What also happens to people is that they have lovable stars and the business grows and then the self-interest goes and then they slide over to that competent jerk, right? Now you can coach them. You can have hard conversations with them. But if they keep on sliding to the left, sliding over further and further incompetent jerk, is only one way. And that's out of the business, right? It's only one way and it's out of the business, right? So you have to start thinking about, hey, if this person can't figure out how to be intimate enough with the rest of the business and their intimacy is low and their self-orientation is high, and they're only focused on themselves, then you're going to have to make some tough comments. You have to have some tough conversations and then a tough decision. And what you will find is when you fire these people, the rest of your organization will say, what took you so long? That's what they're going to say. Like, well, what took you so long? And here's when you know that you need to fire one of these competent jerks is when they start to push out lovable stars. Because lovable stars do not love competent jerks. They'll put up a little bit with lovable fools, only if you fix the position they'll plan, but you have to keep lovable stars to have a really good, effective business. You have to keep them. Like, you got to treasure them, keep them, pay them well, treat them like partners. Do everything you can to keep lovable stars. Any questions on that? Yeah, shoot.
How long did it take you to come to that place to identify those that seemingly possible brain makers for your business?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, they're destructional. They're destructional to the culture and environment of other producers in your business.
I would say, as a leader, didn't have a lot of courage, right? So the most courageous thing you can do is make a decision. The least courageous thing you can do is just keep on watching it and let it happen. And so for a long time, I wasn't super courageous about it. And over time, I realized that there was only one way out. And so I had to take a courageous stance. It probably took kind of 7 years before I kind of understood it. And then probably another 2 or 3 years before knew I had to do something. And it was a big change inside the business.
So in your structure, you have certain things now to identify those type of, to give you flags right away early.
Oh yeah. We have a lot of courageous conversations around it. Talk about it openly too. And what also will happen is, as you talk about it openly, what you're gonna be okay with, like you get exactly the behavior you put up with. So if you really talk about the behavior you're going to be okay with, people will start to self-select. People are like, oh, they're not going to put up with this, so I should leave. Or this isn't the place for me because I'm not necessarily nice, right? And they put on their contagious energy as work hard, be nice, have fun. That's not me. I'm not about that. I'm about hardcore business. Okay, good. It's not a place for you. If you're attracting everybody, you're attracting nobody, right? So if you're really super bland about what your culture is, be really clear what your culture is about, right? And then you'll attract the people that you want to work with and the people you want to spend time with. Yeah. So the trust account, kind of how do you do deposits and how do you do withdrawals from that trust account? Keeping promise, kindness and courtesy takes very little effort to do that stuff. Clarifying expectations. That's right, clearing expectations actually is a deposit because people then know exactly what they're doing. They trust you more when you're clear about what you want, right? Loyalty to the absent, meaning if someone's not there, we're not talking about them, right? So loyalty to the people that aren't there. Acknowledgement, sincere apologies, being open to feedback. When you're open to feedback as a leader, you're going to be asking people, look, how do you think this is going? What do you think we can do better, right? What do you need from me? You're open to the feedback from the people that you work with, right? Hard to do sometimes because, it's easy to talk about what's not getting done. And so you have to know that you have some thick skin. And when you're taking feedback, make sure a piece of plexiglass is ahead of you, in front of you, so you don't take the shot so personally. And when it hits the plexiglass, look at it and go, okay, that's a piece of feedback. Now, if you get like 4 or 5 or 6 in the same spot on the plexiglass, then you know you have to do something. Sometimes you get a random one, boom, and no one will say that to you for another year. Like, okay, well, that was just that person's perspective. Remember, the person that's giving the feedback is human too, right? They may be having a bad day. They maybe have something going on. So when you get that feedback, don't take every single feedback as the law, right? But once you get like a clustering, you know that you need to do something about that, right? Withdrawals can be bad, right? Breaking promises, unkindness, discourtesy, and sometimes you slip out because we're human, right? And it's okay to go back to people and say, hey, I had a rough day yesterday. I'm sorry, right? Or I'm fighting with my wife or my teenage kid. I just got through going through all teenagers, right? So I'm a much happier person. So all those things can cause people to slip up from a kindness perspective. Violating expectations, disloyal to the absent, gossip, rumors. I would highly recommend that you kind of squash all that. Pride, conceit, arrogance, defensiveness, placing blame. One of the things in this business is in construction, when it's physical, who did that? What are we going to do about it, right? We usually try and say, okay, this is the situation we're in. Now we got to fix it, right? Because it's hard because money in the physical world, when you're doing something else, accounting or whatever, not a lot of money gets transacted if something's wrong. Well, if something's wrong, a change order is going to happen, a back charge is going to happen. That's hard, right? But inside your own business, you need to think about, okay, what are we going to learn and how we move forward, right? And you're going to have setbacks. People are going to make mistakes. So placing blame is something. And I love this saying, all the deposits you have are built in drops. But boy, lost in buckets, right? One especially as leader, one unkind statement, one thing that can happen can be lost in buckets, right? And you have to really think about this as a fragile thing, trust. And it's funny that a lot of businesses don't spend a lot of time on it. We spend an inordinate amount of time. So we have 5 strategy teams, and then we have the vision leadership team. And the first 30 to 40 minutes of every single meeting where they're getting together on the strategy is first a personal check-in, personal business check-in. How are they doing? And then second, issue clearance. Is there any issues in between any of us here, right? So then they clear issues, and then that way they're clean and clear to have good conflict. Think about that now. That's a lot of people. Some of those teams are 10 people, and we spend an hour on making sure everyone's good, right? So we can get to work. A little bit different thought process. And then how is this lost in communication? And how is trust lost in communication? Is there's 3 different ways. And Frances Fry is a great author from Harvard Business. She actually left Harvard Business to go help fix Uber and their cultural problems. And so it's either logic, empathy, or authenticity. And I'll break some of these down for you as you think about how do you communicate with your teams and also with each other. Let's see. First, we're going to start with empathy. I went too far. If you think people care more about yourself than about others, they won't trust that you can lead them, right? If you're really thinking about yourself and how you are in something, then people really will lose trust in you. And the best example of this is if you're in a meeting and you already know the answer, what do you think happens to your attention? It goes down dramatically, right? And as a leader, guess what they're going to feel? Your attention down dramatically. You typically will pick up your phone. You typically will unengage. Now, is trust going up or is trust going down? Right? It's going down fast, right? So every time you're doing something with your team, think about how do I ask them more questions to get to the answer that I think already is there, and in that way we can finish the meeting early, right? So from an empathy perspective, when you're communicating, just know that the team may be in a different spot than you are. Stay engaged, stay totally there, and as your reward, you'll get to finish the meeting earlier, right? And so think about that with empathy. Logic is a much different one. Logic is about how you tell stories, right? And if you start off with a story and you're going through the story and you start to tell all the details, and you're really not good at this because this is a varsity sport, and you're going around and about, and usually someone will get off at the second turn because your logic isn't there. They're not quite understanding where you're going. And here's a trick how to fix that is now start with the punchline. Hey, we need to get this done, and it's for these reasons. And then you can tell a little bit about the story after the fact because they're going to be interested. They know what the punchline is. So if people can't follow your logic, you're going to lose trust, right? And so you have to really think about every word that you're about to say. How are you going to present it? And is it really consumable, right? And think about how you tell stories. But that's a varsity sport, the people that can tell these long stories that can drag along. Last one is authenticity. Showing up as your full self is sometimes hard. Exposing your full life is sometimes hard. And whether you're going through a hard time with your wife or your partner, or whether or not you're having trouble with your family, as we have aging. Now I have aging parents. Don't send him the link; he won't love that. But the challenge is if you hide them, people will know you're not exposing your true self, and they just won't buy off on it. right? They just won't, if you just are constantly with this kind of salesperson face, they're just not going to buy off on it. If you look at them and say, hey, I'm having a rough day, that will build trust. Or, hey, I'm having a great day. I'm living the dream, right? And so sometimes that inauthenticity will, if you're not authentic, will drive away people and cause mistrust. Something to think about as you communicate with your team. I think I have a couple more slides. This is a formula that really, and I guess our format didn't work out right, but when you're building a great company, a lot of people think it's 20 different things. And really, Harvard did a really good business study, and it ended up being these 4 things you have to have. A really clear communicated strategy. And if your team knows your strategy, they'll be able to help you. It doesn't matter if you're a laborer or all the way up to a project manager or maybe a vice president CFO. If they know your strategy, they're able to help the whole strategy. So you have to be really clear what the strategy is going to be. Execution and consistently meets customer needs, right? You have to get the work done and just meet the customer expectations, right? It doesn't mean exceed, because if you exceed it, you're actually losing margin, right? You want to meet the customer's need. Now, some people think today you have to delight. I think on very few moments you have to delight, but I think you have to just get to the customer's expectations. A culture of high performance and high values, right? You have to be really clear that the business is going to operate and how it's going to run, and high values, right? If things are value orientated, they stand, and those can't shift. And as an employee, if you know those can't shift, you know those are the values I have to live up to. A structure that simplifies working in an organization. So if you're inside of a business, let's say you have 50 people, if everyone knows what the structure is, it's easy to operate in, they know they can get their job done, right? That is how you kind of build a great company in perpetuity. And these 2 other ones off the side, these kind of secondary ones is, and there's actually 4, but you have to have 2 of the 4. These are the 2 that we have. That's superior talent at all levels, right? It means you have to pay for that, or you have to have a great leader, right? 2 other ones on there. You have to be really good at M&A. That means you have to do mergers and acquisitions, or you have to have some sort of compelling technological advances. So when you think about IT companies like Google or Apple or whatever, they have superior technology, right? But they have to have those first 4 first when you're thinking about building a great company. Shoot.
Back to the perspective you were saying about being the CEO,
Mm-hmm.
Chief Vision Officer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you say logic, empathy, and authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So as a CEO, these particular strategies, or where you're implementing logic, empathy, and authenticity, were these self-created within your organization, or like Mike did, say, hey, show me your program? You found a organization that were you going to be to show you that, hey, this is what we implemented in our structure?
Yeah. So you're saying, where did I get that business concept from? And how did I learn this stuff? Yeah. So I didn't invent most of the stuff here, right? This isn't Scott Moss original, right? So this is Harvard right here. I ever since I was 31, 32, I'll tell you a little bit my path. I was in Vistage, and Vistage is an organization where you meet once a month. You hear a business concept, and then you're with 12 other people in business, and you hear about their business challenges, right? So you spend it once a month for a whole day, 8 hours. Just like you're doing here today, I'm sharpening you guys are sharpening your saw today. I would sharpen mine every month for 8 hours, right? And so in that 8 hours, I would learn a business concept and hear other people's problems. What does that do for 5 years? You iterate. Now you're hearing 12 other people's issues in business. You're iterating very fast. You don't have to experience it yourself. You're hearing it. You're hearing other people like solve it for them. Now you've learned business, right? I didn't learn any more about putting in plumbing or putting in electrical, but I learned about business, right? So that was the first 5 years. And then I joined another organization. And so you have to decide how much of this you can do, right? You can't be the big fat goose, right, that only does this work. You just have to decide how much of this can you do, right? And then how effective is it? So then I joined a Young Presidents Organization. You have to be under 40, do a certain amount of volume, have a certain amount of employees. So I joined that group. And then from there, I've been doing Harvard Business with YPO for the past 7 or 8 years. A lot of these concepts I then learn, and then I come back and teach inside the business, right? Part of my job is I'm more of a teaching CEO, right? And the teaching CEO brings back concepts, and then this is how we should think about this. Because after a while, what you guys will realize is after you build, you're a great project manager, then you have to be a good business person, right? Because and I call myself a recovering project manager, right? A little bit finite. I'm only looking at from here to here. Now as a business, I need to raise up, look a little further in the business. So I've since 32 on, I've been working on this craft of being a CEO for 18 years, and it takes work. It takes extra work. Right? When I go away to Harvard, it's 1 week. It starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we don't finish till 11 o'clock at night. One straight week. My wife knows, no phone calls, a text maybe. I'm alive, and she hates it, by the way. But it's been great for the business. The business would not be where it is today without me doing that for the past 7 years. Yeah, it takes work. And what you guys are doing today, it takes work, right? Yeah. And so I mentioned the motive. I just recently read this book, and I love the idea of reward and not responsibility. Like everyone, of course, wants to drive a nice car, of course, wants nice things. But if that's why you're going to run a business, you're going to be solely or unfortunately, you're going to be like, this is not worth it, right? But if you're doing it for the responsibility of owning a business, you're going to love it. Like, and if you don't love it, it's a lot of work to do it. When you think about these things, and you go over this in the book, what happens to people mostly is they do it for the reward, but then the responsibility, they don't even know what to do for the responsibility. But this is your responsibility as a chief executive officer, chief vision officer in my mind. You have to develop your leadership team. You have to pour into them a ton, right? You're here today to learn. Now you have to go back and pour into them, right? Pour into your team about what you learned, about what you're thinking about. You have to manage your subordinates. And then you have to force them to manage yours. Because if you're managing their subordinates, you're doing their job, right? So you have to manage, you have to hold them accountable, right? Not always fun. Having difficult and uncomfortable conversations. A team member's misbehaving in a meeting or not treating people right, it's uncomfortable. Yes, you have to have that conversation in order for this to work. Running great team meetings. Meetings can be horrible. Totally understand. And today, in the CEO world, this is your Super Bowl. Every meeting, you ought to treat it like your Super Bowl. You have to hold the best meetings. You have to inspire everybody. You have to be organized. You have to treat it like you have to practice before you get there. You have got to be good at holding meetings. It is what you do. Because at the end of the day, once that huddle breaks, everyone has to know what play to run. And you better be super effective in the huddle. Lastly is communicating constantly and repetitively. You're going to find yourself saying the same thing again and again and again and again. And if any of you played football or basketball or any other thing, you know how many times you ran a play in practice ad nauseum. Like I think I ran 826 belly 1,000,000 times, right? But that repetitiveness is what ends up grinding into people and they hear it over and over again. I've given that slide about our strategy, I think 120 times. 120 times, easily. And CEO updates and meetings and town halls, but that's part of our job. And yes, it gets repetitive. Yes, I know exactly what I'm going to say, but it's super inspiring for the people that need to hear it over and over again, right? And I think that might be...
Yeah, you got 2 more.
I got 2 more? Good deal. So a little bit of what we just did here is I kind of showed you my playbook, right? A little bit about inspired, safe, and fulfilled. Just 5 dysfunctions of a team, improving lives, building the future, and kind of the infinite game, a little bit of motive. So this is a little bit of my playbook. Could I do about 8 hours of this? I could probably do 8 hours of this because there's been a lot of, 7 years of learning about how to think about this business. And so one part about business is when I told you that I'm responsible for all those families, when you own a business and we have families in your stead, there is weight to it, right? And when you think about 3,000 to 4,600 hourly, 1,700 hour salary people, and then there's 120 people in the planning meeting. That's 120. There's 120 executives that work inside the business. And there's 12 of us that really kind of guide where the business is. And every now and again, that top team will be like, "This is heavy." I'm like, yeah, it's because 5,000 people are depending on you to make good decisions, right? And so every single day you show up, you have to know you have the weight of people that you need to take care of. So hopefully that was, oh, look at that, 3 minutes left. What's that? That's my vision leadership team. So that's what I call my top team. Some people call them the executive team. I didn't want something super formal. I wanted something more inspiring. So that team is responsible for the vision of the business. Yeah.
All right, y'all clap it up for Scott.
Thank you.
Was that awesome or what? We're gonna do some Q&A. Yeah, grab your water. Take a little squig. We got some more work to do. I want to do some Q&A. Did you all find value in this or not?
Yeah. Thank you.
Listen, I'm telling you, this was a executive education course that you all got, that people paid thousands of dollars for, that you all received from Scott. Y'all clap it up for Scott one more time. You have to remember, he spent years learning this. So think about the value of the information you just received. That he spent years to build a company that's doing billions of dollars of work. You just got it. You always say, "I deserve to win." I deserve to win. Just because of that, you deserve to win. And so, baby, you hand me that piece of paper. It's right there in front of you by Jill. I had some questions I jotted down, and so many things. I appreciate everyone. This is Q&A. So if you have a question, we'll bring the mic to you, because since we're live streaming, we want to make sure we record it. But Scott, I know you talked about some of this, but you talked about how to build trust with our teams. Mm-hmm. And you talked about how trust can dwindle over time. How do you, as the CEO, how do you deal with the internal issue of letting go people that trust has dwindled?
Well, it starts with hard conversations, right? And the faster you get there, the better it is. Yeah. So typically what happens is one of those trust dwindling things would happen, and people would be like, "Oh, they're just having a bad day. Don't want to talk about it." Right? And then the next one will happen. "Oh, okay, well, that's just him or her." And the next one will happen, and then all of a sudden you're down to a point now where
it's gone.
It's gone. You can't get it back. And so the faster you get to those, and you see it right away, you're like, "Hey, whoa, wait a second. Is that within our culture? Is that within our values?" I'm just seeking to understand. Don't go with judgment. Seek to understand. Like, what were you thinking? What was this? Correct it fast, and you'll probably end up at a place where people will get it. Now, if you're correcting it fast, you may end up, the person maybe self-select faster, because they'll realize, "Oh, that won't work here. My narcissism won't work. My behavior won't work." But the faster you get on it, and think about what you're doing here is you're also sparing the other people, right, that work with you, because you owe it to them from a humane level to get on top of it. This is your job, right? This is your job to correct that behavior. So get it to it fast, right? And then once you know that it's not going to work from a humane level, set them free to go find a new place.
Set them free.
Set them free. Like, if this isn't your place, that's totally okay. You're a good human.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to treat you bad, and you shouldn't treat us bad in order for you to go find something new to do.
Yeah. Right. Can you help us, Scott? Lay your hands on us and pray for us. How do you set them free? Can you give us an actual example of how you set them free?
Oh, you have the conversation of, well, I mean, and we try and do this. Look, we talk about being a family. I think we're more of a team than a family, because I think family comes over for Easter and Christmas, and I don't think I want 4,000 people there. So, but when you're on a team, you may not be on the team, but you're still family, right? And so you got to care deeply about people. And so if they know you care deeply about people, and you say, look, this isn't working out for us and you, and so let's figure out what's the next step in your evolution. Maybe it's a new position inside the company, if that'll work, or maybe it's you need to leave to find your path.
Good.
Yeah, and I think humans want this kind of interaction. They want to be respected, and you can do it with a lot of dignity. Right? I would focus on doing it with a lot of dignity.
That's good.
Yeah.
Was that good or what, y'all?
Yeah.
There's so many, man. I'm full already.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I'm full. I don't know about anybody else,
I appreciate
but
it.
I'm full. That was
From a preacher, that's
yes.
saying a lot. Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
full.
Yeah. I was even on time. Can they say that you on Sunday?
Yes, they can.
They can.
They can. Man, that was awesome. So, not only the evolution of the company, you hit a point. You said, I do it a little differently than my father.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Some people recognize that I used to have business partners.
Yeah.
Now my wife is my partner.
Good call.
And some people say, matter of fact, it was one guy, he asked me, it was actually this week, he said, Michael, did you really start growing once you took ownership of the company? I said, I never really thought about it, but ironically, yes.
Yeah.
But I realized what happened and what I was doing for the company to start growing. I remember, when we met, went in the Gator 100, going from 1.7 to $11 million in 3 years. Like, I remember specifically the things I was doing, and you talked about that. And I think everyone here needs to understand the importance, because most of us have small teams, and it's so easy to get trapped of just working in the business.
That's right. That's right.
But what did you have to do in order to shift the mindset to say, let me not just work in the business, but let me work on it?
Yeah. One of the things we do is when we, and you may not have enough time to do this, and we had the luxury of a little bit of time because we had scale, right? And I was talking a little bit about having a bigger business is a little bit easier to run than a small business because you have
Yes.
resources, right? But what we do is, in order to work on the businesses, we get away from the office to have these strategy sessions, meaning we're not sitting in the office to where a secretary can come in and, hey, sign this, hey, do this. So get away from the business and maybe do it once a quarter and say, hey, where's this business heading? Are we in the right path? Don't worry so much about the numbers, worry about kind of the market. How are we doing in the market? And then what's our culture, right? And once you start getting away from the office to do it, and you look at it objectively, not just when you're in the business, because when you're in the forest, it's really hard to see if you're in looking at trees, it's really hard to see the whole forest, right? And so I think taking the time to put some white space on your calendar to figure out, okay, I'm just going to sit and think about this business for a while, right? And creating some space to do that is it's hard to do because someone's going to call you and say the drywall's not here, or the plumber screwed this up,
right,
or this happened. All of that stuff happens in our business, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, because those in the cohort at ACF, they know what I talk about, y'all. You all remember? CEO time. So I learned from my business coach.
Yeah.
He says, Michael, you should set CEO time every week.
Yeah.
Even if it's an hour, 2 hours, put it on your schedule and don't miss it.
Yeah.
Don't miss that time. Don't miss that scheduled appointment. It's an appointment with yourself that nobody else can interrupt. So imagine it was a client that's going to bring you an opportunity. Remember, CEOs get paid to do what? Think. So if I keep missing this appointment to think, now I'm missing the appointment to change my business to be in position for the opportunities. And so I love all the information he gave. And I want to continue to encourage you, before you leave here today, schedule your CEO time. Mine's are Monday mornings, because after a long week preaching on Sunday, not only do I need to relax, but I need time to think. So most Monday mornings, that's my CEO time. First thing, Monday morning, up to our 11 o'clock meeting. That's all I want to do. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to take any phone calls. I don't want to respond to any emails. Let me just take time to actually think, what's my next move? I know the last piece, and then we'll open up for anybody that have questions. I saw in one slide the evolution of Moss, and you had, I forget, was it 13.0? Was that
8.0. And 8.0
was that 8 at the end?
8.0
Was that future?
That's probably in 2025.
Okay.
We're getting a new CFO. We're moving in a new office. We're changing some things inside the businesses. We're changing HR a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot. So we're changing hardware and software in the same business.
So what? So this intrigues me. You all hadn't had enough yet?
Was enough.
Huh.
Was enough. Well, and
y'all see why I asked this question?
Yeah. It's funny people ask you about enough. And so one of their values, I hinted at this, was entrepreneurial spirit and embrace opportunities. Well, embrace opportunities is the value that everybody has there. So it's not me. I don't sell anymore. Like, I don't deal with clients that often, right? I'm focused on making it a great place to work. Here's how I think about it. If I have a great place to work, we get the top talent. And owners want to see what? The top talent, right? They like to see me and know that I'm financially responsible, that I'm a decent person. But am I going to be there when the job is in the middle of the throes of getting the job done? No, the top talent's going to be there, right? And we keep top talent because it's a great place to work. They're inspired to work there. They get great benefits. They get great pay. And so this is really my job, right? And so once you make it a great place to work, the flywheel goes. Like,
it just
someone
goes.
else is selling it, right? And someone else, so I only look and evaluate the business strategy in each region. Someone else is running that. This is their career. This is going to be their family's wealth. And so our business has always been focused on generational wealth, just not the Moss generational wealth, but the whole team's generational wealth.
Good.
Right? So is it ever going to be enough? That's up to the team. That's up to the team.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Questions?
Shoot. Yeah.
I know Glenn's not going to be the only one. Oh, you got it.
I'm not trying to be greedy either. Your model, you structure your focus on the generational wealth of the quality of people that are in the family of your business structure. So you're looking at that from that perspective, which my question is, you have competition that's a twin to your business in your market. And the challenge of them being shopped away, they see you have rainmakers that's well in grind that make it happen for Moss, right? What do you put in place in terms when you're talking that generation wealth and keeping that talent that you've spent an investment of time training and getting them culturized?
Right.
What do you structure to do distinctively to keep that, what I call a hero or that rainmaker that you have?
Yeah, lovable star. Okay, no one's under a contract. In my business, no one has a contract. Zero. No non-competes, no non-solicits. Zero. If you treat them with amazing dignity, care about them deeply, pay them at 75% or 100% of market, meaning they're one of the top people paid in kind of their position, they're going to choose, right? They choose from there. And so, do we have long-term incentive compensation programs? Yes. Do we have a bonus program? Yes. But I think at the end of the day, will someone always pay them more? Yeah. Yes. Someone can pay one person more. right? And if you're doing it right, if that one person leaves because they're getting paid more, there's probably someone right behind them ready to slide in, right? And so if you have that machine built, right, and you can confidently say, look, we're a great place to work. If this isn't part of your journey, that's okay, right? Or if they're in a family situation where they think they need that extra money, then that's okay. What typically ends up happening is, we don't have a lot of people leave for that reason, right? I would say our turnover in the top team is under 5%, right? Haven't had anybody leave my team or one of the strategy teams in the past 3 years.
So you basically made it competitive to your market for the people in that level of what their function is competitive to the market. You have packages and programs in place that outside of the culture, that package is competitive with the donuts, the cookies, and the bonuses. It isn't that much attractive to go anywhere else.
Yeah, that and I offer a lot of transparency. Everyone knows how much the business makes. Everyone knows.
Hold on. Didn't you just ask me this? No, somebody in class asked me that. This was Tuesday. See, I teach so much that I get them all mixed up. But somebody asked me that. Should I open up my numbers? And I told them right before you came in. I remember when we came and did the tour, and you opened your entire dashboard. I think you were just doing $1 billion then.
Yeah, that's right.
And you open up your entire dashboard. I say, who does that? Nobody. And
it's just numbers.
That just spoke to that piece. So why have that type of transparency? Talk more about that.
You can offer people money, but you can't offer them a huge purpose. And if they have the same purpose as you have from a transparency standpoint, people, especially high performing people that are highly trusted, right? All that credibility equation. They want to feel like they have autonomy to make the best decisions. If you give them half the information, meaning you're not telling them everything about the business, not being totally transparent, they can't make the best decision. They get super frustrated.
This is so good.
Now you give them all the information, and they're part of your team. And here's the freeing part about it. You're not stuck at the business forever because they have all the information to make business. One of the things I talk about, even though I'm a young man, 50, I don't want to be stuck at this business when I'm 75 years old because I have all the information. I can only person make decisions, right? If you're there and you have all the information, it means you've set it up to where you're the only person that can decide. I want other people to decide. My wife likes to see me, believe it or not. So I want to spend time with her and my family. And if I'm the only person that make a decision, it's really hard.
That's good.
Right? So transparency pushes decisions at the appropriate level.
That's good.
Meaning the project teams know exactly how much they're going to make. Superintendents know exactly how much we're going to make. Now, when they figure out how much they're getting paid compared to how much the business is making, they feel really satisfied. They feel like they're getting an appropriate share of the profits.
That's good.
Right?
Ooh.
Yeah. A lot of businesses just don't do that, especially private businesses. And I think it's a bbig mistake.
Yes.
Now, publicly traded businesses, you have to be super transparent because you have shareholders, right? But and if I like to assume everyone's an adult over 18. They can handle this conversation.
They don't need to be there.
If they don't, they shouldn't be here, right?
Yeah. This is good stuff. This is what I teach in our mentorship program. A couple of things. How to create a workplace that everybody loves to be there.
Yeah.
So when Monday morning comes or whatever day they sign in, they're happy to go to work.
Yeah, engaged.
They're engaged.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
The other piece I think that's important is also the different team meetings that you talked about. How you actually get, especially like you, Fabian, how do you get some of your leads now on the team so they can collaborate and then talk to you and say, hey, what did you all come up with, right?
Yeah.
And how can we continue to make things better? So now you're pushing leadership on those individuals because if they never grow, the business won't grow.
Exactly right.
Right? So I think those things are critically important. Sharing the information, being transparent. So making sure that I saw you had a company, big company. I saw a picture on Facebook. You all had a big picnic or something, right? So continuing those types of things and continuing to share transparently the information of what's going on in the business, good, bad, and ugly. Right?
Yeah. I mean, news is news. Sometimes it's gonna be good news, sometimes it's gonna be bad news.
Yeah.
When we were smaller, and during the downturn, 2008, 2009, people thought we were gonna go to business.
Mm-hmm.
But we were winning projects, but people didn't know. So now you had to say, all right, these are the projects, or they didn't know we're going after projects. These are the projects we're going after. These are the ones we won this last month, right? Because I wanted to reassure people that we're going to be open,
Mm-hmm.
right? Remember, infinite game, you have to keep the business going, right?
Mhm.
That's our job, just keep the business going. It doesn't mean, and in some years you do really well, and in some years you may lose money, right? But your job is to keep the business going,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's our job, is to keep business going. So you have to assure people and be super transparent. Hey, we won that one, we lost this one. It's okay, right? Or we didn't get that project. I know we wanted it, we didn't get it. Or hey, we started it and we couldn't get along with the owner, and we left the project, and that's okay too. It's all
That's okay too.
it's okay too. Yeah.
The other thing I remember you talking about was that particular client in Jacksonville,
Mm-hmm.
and you stayed true to what it would take for you to do that project.
Yeah.
For those of us that maybe not there yet,
Yeah.
meaning we can pick and choose, or at least we feel that way.
Yeah.
What words of encouragement would you give them to be clear on that specific target, to be
Yeah.
clear on that, and how
Yeah.
important it is to be clear on that, and maybe how can they build resilience on that?
Yeah.
Because that's a huge piece. What you think causes you to have that resilience to say, hey, because some people can say, well, you got all the work. Well, if you got work,
Yeah, you can choose.
you can choose. But
As we got size and scale, I think about it as a smaller kind of
Mhm.
contractor, or you have to know yourself pretty well. What are you capable of? And then really focus on, is there a market for what you're capable of? If there's not a market, it doesn't matter what you're capable of. So make sure you understand the market really well. And then if there's so much in that market, now you have to go and pick which owners will help make sure you're successful, right? Because that's the most dangerous.
yes,
That's the most dangerous relationship, is that owner
yes,
and you,
yes.
right? Because there's not a contract in the world that'll save you from a bad person,
Mm.
right? No matter how lucrative it looks at the beginning, doesn't
Yes.
mean it's going to work out that way. So if it's a bad person, you need to really kind of think about, okay, what am I in for, right? And this is stuff I've learned over time. And not every job is a great job,
Mhm.
right? Not every job is a great job. So you have to really evaluate these projects on kind of who the owner is, who's your team that's going to be there. Do they kind of match up real well?
Mm.
And what kind of subcontractor base you have in that area, and can it get done, right? That's super tactical. But as we grew and as we got bigger, is the diversity of projects and diversity of market segments then allows you to pick and choose the best job for those markets. But if you are so plowed into like apartments and all you have is apartments, and this is what you have to think about now, is as you get like your fourth or fifth job, is we have nothing but apartments. And if the interest rate goes down, these things stop.
Right.
So then you have to
Instantly.
start thinking about, okay, well, who's going to have money if interest rates go down? Well, typically school boards have money, public works has money, or if you go public works, think about this. I'm deep into public works. I know it's steady. What causes public works to stop? Well, if the tax base goes down at all, or you have a change in administration that doesn't want to do this stuff, then my work dries up, right? You have to know what the next card is, right? Kind of think about what's going to happen next.
That's good.
And in that way, you can kind of pick and choose. But the first couple jobs, it's all about what are we capable of? Is there a market? And then how's that owner feel? But then diversity really helps it out. I mean, we do have the luxury of choosing now, and sometimes we choose poorly. Still today, we still work with people that
Horrible.
and we go, okay, that's the last time we'll do that. With them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good.
I've actually had a New York developer come in town, and he came in our office to ask us questions and interview us. And he goes, about 30 minutes in the conversation, he goes, I'm here to interview you, and it feels like you're interviewing me. I'm like, oh, you better believe it. I had to figure out whether or not you're going to pay. He's like, really? I'm like, yes, that's the most dangerous relationship. I don't mind telling people. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
do you all see how much you have to grow as a person to make these type of decisions? I love that you mentioned the Harvard Business Program, and something we've noticed, which oftentimes plagues Black and brown communities, we don't have CEO groups, really that are in proximity.
Yeah.
I remember being invited once I grew to Vistage.
Yeah.
And that was my first introduction to a CEO group.
Yeah, that's right.
And you still had to make $5 million just to be in that group.
Yeah.
But when I look at the statistics, specifically in Central Florida, there's probably like 0.2% Black and brown businesses that will even qualify to be in the Vistage. So, did you get to meet Miss Faylene?
I did.
And so we have advocates in the community like her that push for mentor protege and these different things. And I think that's great. However, you said you were able to learn from others.
Mm-hmm. Right. Iterate. You can iterate fast when you learn from others.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go through the hard experience yourself.
Right. So it's important to not only have a mentor, but it's also important to collaborate amongst your peers.
Yeah, 100%.
So before you all leave, you all definitely need to get to know each other, because I tell my class all the time, almost everything you need is already in the room. I believe in divine relationships. Just like he and I met, I believe that people that come into your life, not all of them, but a lot of them, God led them into your life for some reason. And as soon as you can connect the dots, you may not see it instantly, but you be like, oh, yeah. And it happens all the time in our class. Somebody needs some advice from an attorney. One of them is an attorney, was able to help them. Somebody needs some marketing advice. It's always in the room. So start thinking about what's your next circle, what's your next CEO group, what's the next group you can be in, so you can continue to collaborate, so you can grow off the experiences of other people. All right, any last questions? Okay, you got one, Julian.
So you kind of talked about when you gave an example about having 3 jobs and then going to 6 jobs, and then kind of using your strategy to create this box for this person. Yeah. And I just was curious to know if you had a particular box that you feel that really you felt as though really gave you the ability to send your company to the next level.
Yeah.
Or was it a person, or was it a box?
It always starts off as a box, and then it becomes a person, right? And so our story is, construction isn't a group that typically has a bunch of strategy in it. We just think about getting the next job, get the next job, get the next job, right? And we hired a strategist about 10 years ago, and we thought about the box. We said, hey, we need a person to help us with strategy. And so he was in charge of strategy and marketing. And so we put the box on. We went to go look for him. We thought we were looking for a unicorn. We actually told people when we were interviewing, we're looking for a unicorn. This guy happened to be kind of retired at 51. And he was teaching at an MBA school, Nova Southeastern. Didn't love it. He was teaching accounting. He's a CPA. And he had a big career in sales and in plastics and in chemicals. And he traveled all over the world. Now he's settled down in Fort Lauderdale. How lucky is this? And so we find a strategist that is not looking to, travel the world, but work for a group of people that he likes. Walks in our office. We had a real clear definition of what that box would do. Lo and behold, there he is, and he fits in the box. He has changed the business dramatically. He's the reasons why we look at the business every quarter. He's the reason why we talk about the businesses the way we do. So huge difference in the business. business would not even be the same without him. Yeah. So
I
it
love
did what
that.
it's supposed to do. Now, how about this? Over time, then we made another box. We had our chief legal officer and our CFO was in the same box. It was getting to be too big. We needed a box for just CFO. He raised his hand. He was sitting over this box. He said, I can help with that because he's an accountant. He moved over to the CFO role over time. He got strategy kind of laid out over 3 or 4 years and then moved over to CFO. And it made a huge difference in CFO.
That's
Now,
good
that's a
stuff.
person that's been in 2 different boxes, but the box has to be created first.
That's good stuff.
Did you refill the strategy box?
Yeah. So we refilled the strategy box with this particular box ended up being more of a communications person over time. And so now strategy moved a little bit over here, but then we ended up filling that with Veronica, and Veronica joined our team about 2 years ago. Yeah. And we drug some people from strategy over. Yeah. So it's a little bit of an evolution. But yeah, one person can make a huge difference only if you have the position right, and then they fill the position wholly.
So what I want you all to understand, there's something
Good question.
great question. There's something you can do when you're small and you feel like you don't have those resources, right, to fill that box. The first thing, you got to know what the box is supposed to look like and what defines the box. So you got to spend time creating the box, right? But once you have that, it's also important to realize that there's something called fractional services.
Yeah, it's good. Good call.
Fractional services. Okay, so what does that mean? So in our mentorship, we provide fractional services for marketing, human resources, and also CFO services, right? Whether you use us or somebody else, you can hire someone fractionally. What does that mean? They kind of like a part-time consultant for you. So now you're still able to introduce the box and get what you need from the box versus ignoring it as if you don't need it.
No, you're doing it at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But having someone else that actually is able to fill what's in that box, even if it's part-time, even if it's what we call fractional, it helps you get to that next step until you're able to hire a strategist.
Or when fractionally the guy's there 4 days of the week, you're like, okay, I should just hire my own.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in that way you can measure it.
Right.
We actually use fractional things because even us, it's not an unlimited overhead budget.
Right.
Right. And so if we need extra help in something and just a little, and maybe 2 months, we'll go out and hire consultants to fill in that spot.
Mm-hmm.
So even we do it. Right. But you have to be really clear. That's what you need. Right. And you're like, okay, we're going to hire this person, or you have a list of people that you would use for certain things. Like we don't, some companies are big, our size would have a change management group that would help you with change. Well, we have a consultant that helps us with change management. Like we don't have our own change management group.
That's good.
Yeah.
Somebody else had it. Oh, Isabel. Let get the mic.
What kind of discipline did you have to have when you were going from one version to the next?
Some of it is, my wife would say I'm not really disciplined. So,
Thank you for your transparency.
In some areas, right?
especially raising kids, she would say I'm horrible at it. The discipline is more about talking about it than about getting it totally right. Right? More talking about how the business is changing. Like we did a transaction in 2014. Being open and transparent about this is changing, this is what we're doing, right? That's more the discipline than it is. Some of this stuff is like hindsight looking, like, oh, we changed right there and I didn't really catch it, but we did change right there, right? So now we're working on predicting a little bit better the change. Like, again, this is evolution. We're still a company that's only 20 years old, so we haven't built a lot of scaffolding around explaining this really great, like, so true transparency, right? But it's more about the discipline of reminding people that we're changing. That's the discipline. And some people like take offense when they say this place is changing. I'm like, well, we better. It's called extinction if we don't change, right? Because the market's constantly changing. You better be changing with the market. So
Yeah, the discipline is more about changing, I would say, and evolving.
And I did have one more question. Sure. How did you determine which market to go into?
It's fun. Yeah, you're asking, how did you get to Hawaii, right? The business started in South Florida, and we had a group of us that lived in Ocala, and so strategically we opened an office in Cala. That's sarcasm, by the way. But over time, we had a transaction that a company actually paid us to take over another company. It was a publicly traded company. They had a problem. They needed to get rid of a company. And so it's kind of like your wife says, look, I'll buy you a Ferrari if you get rid of that beat up Camaro in the front yard. And what do? You say to your buddy, Mike, I'll pay you $5,000 to get rid of this car. And he goes, oh, okay, well, fine. I get the car and 5 Gs, yes. Then I get a Ferrari, right? And so that's what happened to them. They needed to get rid of a company and their stock went up, right? So everybody on the table was motivated to get the company out of it. So they paid us, this is public information, they paid us $4 million to take a company, right? And from there, that's how we ended up with Tampa. Now, they gave us Tampa and it had a Tallahassee office and it had an Atlanta office. Why not keep all three? Okay, look at the markets. Tallahassee maybe does $20 million of work there a year. So now you're going to keep overhead there. You're going to keep all this stuff there. You're going to have to keep really expensive people there. So now every 2 or 3 years, you make it a $30 million job. You'll probably spend all your profits keeping the overhead open. And it's Florida State. So it's not, right? So. Oh, sorry. All the pretty girls come from Florida State too. It's very funny. Better, right? So we decided not to keep that office, right? And Atlanta is a good old boy network where they have low fees, super hard to break into. And so we looked at that and we said, let's close Tallahassee, let's close Atlanta. Let's focus on Tampa, which we think is in for a big boom, right? Only because, why do we think it's in a big boom? It's all about demographics. Where are people moving to, right? So I'm a big demographics person, right? So they're moving to South Florida, they're moving to Tampa. Orlando's a little tough. They're moving to Orlando, but they don't do high-rise concrete construction. They do stick-built multifamily apartments. We don't do that here, right? So we didn't invest. We tried to invest in Orlando, and over time we got wiser. We just said, hey, there's not enough developers here doing high-rises and big work. And if you're not working for the Mouse or you're not working for Universal, really hard to have a business that does big work, right? We don't like either one of those contracts, for the record. And so we said, no, thank you, right? And so we moved our operation and focused on Tampa. Now you have $400 million of work there and you have a big group. We ended up in Hawaii, another transaction. A group of people came to us and said, hey, we kind of want to move on from construction. We've made so much money in finance and owning military housing. We want to move on from construction. We don't have a desire to be in the business, right? But we like how you run your business and we care deeply about our people and we want them to have a good place to work. And if we work together, great. If we don't, that's okay too. And so they came and said, we want to buy a minority share of your business. And we're like, that's crazy. Who buys a minority share of a contracting business? Well, this is why we want to do it. We said, okay, that's logical. So they pushed us an office in Hawaii, San Diego, and El Paso, Texas. And so as we got into this transaction, so they paid us and we took all those 65 people. And so we moved the El Paso office. I don't know if anyone's been to El Paso. It's pretty much the moon, right beside Mexico. There's a big army base there. It's a really neat town, but not a lot of building there. So we moved that office to Dallas, Texas. And Dallas has, demographically, there's more people moving there. Second or third or fourth most in the nation, right? Tons of corporate moves. We also got a skill set. We do multifamily stick-built housing there. So we do apartments, wood apartments and stick there. So you have a stick business there and you have a commercial business. The San Diego office, you could have expanded it, but we don't love the politics of California. And we have a 30-year contract to build everything on Camp Pendleton. So 30 years. So I probably won't see the end of that contract, right? And so when I say everything, if they're going to build 300 more units of stick built, we build that. Or if we're just changing air conditionings and doors, we do that.
Hmm.
So everything on that, there's a team that does that. And we got to Hawaii, and we said, well, there's only 3 or 4 big contractors. We can be a big contractor. And then solar ended up budding out of Hawaii. That's where we got our big chances in Hawaii. And that's how we got the solar business the way it is today, is through Hawaii, of all places, the furthest away. And so now it's a great business. It's a great business. Way different culture from Florida to here. The Ohana family, you're on an island, everyone knows each other. That's a way different culture than South Florida. That's really not communal. Like, a little more standoffish, a little more different. It's different, way different. Yeah. So sometimes you end up in these, right? And then sometimes you really choose them. But if you said, Scott, what would another market? I would look at Phoenix for us. Demographically, the right kind of spot, and we have the right skill set. So we'll see. We'll see. Like, I wouldn't choose New York right now. Not a lot of building going on there. Tough market. Tough market.
Everybody say strategy. So you all can see, right, Glenn? Edward, so much goes into being strategic on where you go. Research,
Yeah.
information, looking at data. Somebody say CEO time. Now, hopefully you all understand the importance of tomorrow morning, because you're leaving out of here with your 2025 strategy on not only how you're going to complete the year, but your growth plan and continuing your growth in the markets that you're looking at. Right? Anybody excited to do that? Like a written plan, this is what we're doing.
Amen.
So you can go meet with your team or whoever it is, even if it's just you. Hey team, hey, this is what we're doing next year, right? And it's so important that you have it in writing. Again, when I started working on myself, dumping all this information and knowledge out of my head onto some paper that somebody else could see, that's when things started to change.
Right.
And so, any other questions? Any other
Quick
questions?
question too.
Sure.
For you being in contracting, doing what you do, what percentage? I mean, when I heard about the solar, I was thinking that was like some government contracting. So for your business, you all are not
Private.
in inflation proof. I've heard like inflation proof in your business is doing contracting with government, but in seasonality.
Yeah.
When the downturn in the market was a downturn, hospitals and companies that do business with government were still building.
Yeah, very much so. That solar is a whole topic within itself. That's not based on demographics. It's based on demand, right? So start thinking about how much do we use these little cell phones, right? And then how much, like every time you take a picture, it has to go to a data center somewhere. Everyone's taking pictures, right? Is that slowing down? No.
As a matter of fact, it's picking up.
Picking up, right? And so those data centers take an enormous amount of energy. And then those data centers also compute every single AI search we have. And so when you Google one thing, it takes a certain amount of energy. When you do an AI search on ChatGPT, it takes 10 times the energy to do that search.
Wow.
10 times energy. So now I'm making a case around cell phones. I'm making a case around AI. Think about EVs. EVs take a ton of energy, right? And so all this has to be supported by a grid that's aging, and power plants. Think about power plants. We have 5 different kinds of power, right? Nuclear's got issues. We don't want any more coal, gas-fired power plants. People don't want fracking, right? Wind, there's trouble in wind world because there's not a lot of wind everywhere, right? And the only thing you can put anywhere and get power is solar. So think about all that demand. So that is really, we work for 100% private developers. NextAir is a big client of ours. Duke is a big client. Clearway. These people, these are finance people. They see the demand. They're buying land. They hire us to put panels in. That's the way it goes.
But as big as you are, what percentage is with government?
Oof, I bet you it's under 2%. We're doing 2 police stations right now. We're building 2 or 3% maybe, and we're building a school right now in West Palm Beach. So we're building for a private developer. We're building a city hall.
And you make probably way more money.
Well, yeah.
Oh, it's no maybe. It's no maybe.
I'll say one thing about about growth, a little bit about getting together with a small group that is similar to you in size. And how is this different than the friends you currently have? Is super important because they're not you're people you went to high school with or college that are just kind of working for somebody and you're an entrepreneur, they're not going to understand your life.
Amen.
They're not going to understand your life. So you have to get with people that you may not have a lot of common with, but you have common business needs with. Like, don't go for more drinking buddies. You have plenty of those, right? Go for people that are going to help you get better. And you may not have a ton in common with them, but now you have a common language of business, right? And so that has helped me dramatically, right? I do have drinking buddies from college, and they're great people, but really focus on having people that are going to help you get better.
Awesome. Y'all clap it up for Scott.
Yeah.
I gotta where's the mic? Hold on. Oh.
Did you get the project in Jacksonville?
No,
Oh, you
we
didn't?
chose not to do it.
Okay, I was just wondering if they
Yeah.
decided to pay the upcharge or, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
No, what we ended up happening was that same team that was doing the training facility, we ended up doing the F1 track around Formula One track around Miami. So very fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
And y'all clap it up for
A
Scott.
lot of fun. Thank you.
Oh, you want to ask a question? Go ahead. Y'all got to speak up quick now.
Were they going to give you your 10%?
No, they weren't going to give it 10%. They got someone else to do it for 4, right? And so that's
Yeah, but were they competent?
Yeah, no, they are. They had an office there. So there's always competent. One thing about construction is it's a long tail. There's contractors all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they came at y'all for a reason.
Yeah.
They
We had
wanted
done
you
one
to-
before.
Right.
We had done one before.
Yeah.
Right. That's why they came to us. That's the only reason they came to us.
Yeah.
They got it done. It's in good shape.
But think about it. And I think this is an important point, Rico. He knew what he wanted.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this is our standard.
Yeah.
We've created a standard, and we're not going to lower our standard.
Right.
Right? And that means you have to know yourself and where you're going, because sometimes that can just be a distraction. And most likely, it would have pulled his company down. So sometimes we can't ignore those signs. Like, no, if I'm going to do this, you're going to pay me.
Yeah.
If I'm coming.
I know they had a position
Yeah.
where they don't have to.
No, it's not just about that. It's also about regardless.
Yeah.
To me, and I'm not here. To me, I had to do the same thing, right? You know my changes. I'm no longer really working pursuing OCPS. Some of you all know that, right? That was the same kind of thing that happened with me. I said, I just don't want to do this anymore. But if they want me,
They're gonna pay.
they gonna pay.
It's gonna be. Yeah.
They gotta pay me, and until they get there,
Yeah.
right? It's probably not gonna work. Cause see, sometimes, let me give you this, and we're gonna eat lunch, and then my wife's gonna come and kind of give you all kind of what next steps are. Miss Faylene, you ain't been in government. She still works for City of Gainesville after retiring. She went back to work to help all of us. But this is the thing, is that why work this kind of business and not love what you do?
Yeah.
Why be miserable?
Yeah.
Working for people that don't love you. So I go where I'm loved. And if they can't show and reciprocate the love, I have now, watch this, therapy class, y'all. Everybody say therapy class.
Therapy
I
class.
have now identified that there's something in me that's keeping me in the position to devalue myself to continue to work for people that don't value me. We don't often recognize that we continue to stay in relationships with people that don't have the same love, the same respect. Because, bro, this is what I went through. I'm like, I finished the job, $500,000 job, not 1 cent paid.
Oh, that's crazy.
I finished the job. There was fault on both sides, but I finished the job. You're not a good partner. And sometimes, like Scott said, you're dealing with bad people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, I can't. I'm devaluing myself. That means, Michael, you don't really love you.
That's right.
Michael, you don't really love your business. And then that speaks to your employees. You don't love them. So, lesson learned, bro. For me, I finally, and it takes some, like I said, self-discovery. See your time to say, Michael, what's in you that you are willing to continue to allow other people to devalue you? So when you create a standard, it's good, right, Glenn?
That is so good.
When you create a standard, stay to your standard because you're truly showing that you care about yourself.
Yeah, even you mentioned it, OCPS.
Yeah.
You know, they're getting what they're paying for.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's fine for somebody, right? It was fine for me for years. and I grew from that, right? It was because of that relationship, and I would never take away the credit from them because without that experience, I wouldn't have never worked for University of Florida. I had continuing service work. I was able to leverage that resume. Thank God for people like Faylene that said, hey, we have a mentor protege program. And I was able to leverage that to be able to get a continuing service contract with the University of Florida. So I don't discredit or disvalue that. It was okay for me then, but after a while I realized it's not for me anymore. And it's okay to change. Just make sure you're happy with where you are with your business. All right, y'all clap it up.